All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be here.
I am so excited for this one.
Oh, yeah.
This is all about field work, right?
Yeah.
Talking maps and boots on the ground and just like real, geographic exploration.
Absolutely.
And, I've got this document here all about how to conduct fieldwork inquiries.
Ooh, cool.
And I'm thinking of our listeners out there, and I know some of them, they're students, they're taking geography classes, they might be teachers, they might be parents trying to help their kids with projects, right?
That's right.
Or, maybe they're just people who love maps.
Yeah.
Who just love going out and exploring.
Big time.
So I think this is going to be really, really useful for them.
I agree.
I'm looking at this document, and there are a lot of, technical terms in here.
Oh, yeah.
Things like tally charts and Saccurt scales.
You're right.
Which, I have a vague idea what those mean, but I would love to hear, from the expert.
Picture.
What exactly are those, and how do they fit into this whole fieldwork process?
Well, as you said, there's a lot of terms that sound maybe a little bit daunting at first,
Right.
but when we break them down, they're actually very, very simple.
Okay.
So you mentioned tally charts.
Yeah.
So a tally chart is just a way of keeping track of how many times something happens.
Oh.
So for example, imagine you're out in the field and you're interested in seeing how many people use a particular pathway.
Yeah.
Every time someone walks by, you just make a little mark on your chart, and at the end, you can count up all those marks, and you know exactly how many people use that path.
That's so smart.
Yeah, it's a really simple but effective way of collecting data.
So like bringing some order to the chaos.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And then you mentioned Likert scales.
Yeah.
Likert scales are all about understanding people's opinions and attitudes, and the way they work is instead of just giving someone a yes or no question, you give them a range of options. So for example, you might ask someone, how satisfied are you with the local park? And instead of just saying yes or no, they could say, very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neutral, somewhat dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied.
I see.
So it gives you a much more nuanced understanding of their feelings.
Okay, so you get like a spectrum.
Exactly.
Not just black and white.
That's right.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So we've got these terms, and there are a few others here. Like, it talks about this idea of an enquiry.
Right.
Like, what is the central question that you're trying to answer through this field work?
Absolutely.
And then it talks about collecting data and viewpoints.
Yes.
All these things sort of fit together, but how does this actually play out in practice?
Right. So let's imagine you're setting out on your fieldwork journey.
Okay.
It all starts with that inquiry question.
Okay.
So as you said, what is it that you're curious about?
Yeah.
What do you want to find out about the world?
Right.
Maybe you're interested in how traffic patterns affect air quality in a certain neighborhood. Or maybe you're curious about how different age groups use a public park.
I see.
So you come up with that question, and then you start thinking about what kind of data you need to collect to answer that question.
Okay. And the document mentions so many different methods, like sketches and sound recordings and photographs.
It's amazing.
It's like geography meets art class.
Absolutely.
I'm really intrigued by this idea of annotated sketches
Yeah.
because it seems so simple.
Well,
Like anyone can draw a picture, but what makes an annotated sketch so valuable for field work?
Well, it's about taking that sketch and adding information to it that you wouldn't necessarily capture in a photograph.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, imagine you're sketching a riverbank.
Okay.
You might draw the shape of the river, but you could also add notes about the types of plants you see there,
Right.
the different animals you observe, or maybe even the sounds of the water flowing.
Oh, wow.
So it becomes this really rich record of your observations.
So you're not just passively drawing, you're actively engaging with the environment.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's a really great way to slow down and really notice the details.
That's so true.
Because often when we're out in the world, we're kind of rushing around and we don't really take the time to observe things carefully.
Absolutely.
But when you're sketching, you have to really focus on what you're seeing, and that helps you notice things you might otherwise miss.
Yeah, and I bet it also helps you remember those details later on
Oh, absolutely.
because you've put in that mental effort to really capture them.
Totally.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So we've got sketches, and then there are these other methods like sound recordings and interviews.
Right.
And I'm curious about the interviews. What are some tips for actually conducting good interviews out in the field?
Well, the first thing is to be really clear about what you want to learn from the interview.
Okay.
So before you even go out there, think about what questions are going to help you answer your inquiry question.
Right.
And then when you're actually interviewing someone, be sure to listen actively. Really pay attention to what they're saying. And ask follow-up questions to get more detail.
So it's not just about like reading off a list of questions.
Well, not at all.
It's about having a conversation.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. And, another tip is to try to get a diversity of perspectives.
Right.
So don't just interview people who are similar to you.
Right.
Try to talk to people from different backgrounds, different age groups, different walks of life.
So you get a more well-rounded view of the situation.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've gone out, we've done all this field work. We've got our sketches, our sound recordings, our interview notes. Like, what's the next step?
Well, now it's time to analyze all that data you've collected.
Okay.
And this is where things start to get really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're looking for patterns. You're trying to make connections between the different pieces of information you've gathered.
So it's like you're putting together a puzzle.
Exactly.
You've got all these individual pieces, and now you're trying to see how they fit together.
Oh, that's right. And as you start to put those pieces together, a story begins to emerge.
Ooh, that's cool.
And that story is the answer to your inquiry question.
So it's like you're a detective.
Absolutely.
You're looking for clues, and you're building a case.
That's a great way to put it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've analyzed our data. We found the story now. How do we share that story with the world?
That's where presentation comes in.
Okay.
And the way you present your findings will depend on your audience.
I see.
So if you're presenting to a group of academics, you might write a very detailed report.
Right.
But if you're presenting to a community group, you might want to create a more visual presentation.
Like with maps and charts and pictures.
Exactly.
So it's more engaging.
Yeah, and you might even consider creating a website or a video to share your findings with a wider audience.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Awesome. And then the last thing that this document talks about is this idea of reflecting on the process.
Right.
So it's not just about doing the field work and then you're done.
No.
It's about taking some time to think about what worked well, what could be improved,
Absolutely.
and how you can learn from this experience for next time.
It's all about continuous improvement.
So it's a cycle.
Exactly.
It's not just a straight line.
That's right.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about everything from choosing an inquiry question to collecting data, analyzing that data, and then presenting your findings.
And reflecting on the process.
Yeah, and I think this is so valuable for our listeners out there
I agree.
because it gives them a framework for doing their own field work.
Absolutely.
So whether you're a student or a teacher or just someone who's curious about the world around you,
Yeah.
I hope this has inspired you to go out and do some exploration of your own.
That's what it's all about.
And now that we've talked about all these different methods, I'm curious, what are some like real world issues that you think people could investigate using fieldwork?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
But, one thing that comes to mind is the issue of access to green spaces in urban areas.
Oh, yeah.
You could use fieldwork to investigate how far people have to travel to reach a park,
Right.
or how the quality of those parks varies across different neighborhoods.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Or maybe you're interested in how traffic patterns impact pedestrian safety.
Okay.
You could use fieldwork to observe those patterns and see if there are any areas that are particularly dangerous.
So it's all about taking these methods and applying them to real-world problems.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the great thing about fieldwork is that it's not just about collecting data.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
It's about seeing things from different perspectives.
Right.
And it's about finding solutions to the challenges we face.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
You too.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
This has been so enlightening.
Oh, I'm glad.
And for our listeners out there, remember to go out and explore.
Absolutely.
Observe, and who knows, maybe you'll uncover something truly extraordinary.
Happy fieldwork.
Bye, everybody.